Hi everyone, it's Ryan here from smartsportstrader.com, and in today's video I'm going to take you through a live trading session that I did last week. So I was trading and betting in the football markets in play, and this isn't something that I usually do, but for about the past month I've been spending a bit more time looking at trying to make a profit from the in-play markets, and it's been going reasonably well. So I thought it'd be interesting to make a video discussing some of the strategies that I'm using, show you some of the results from that trading session, and kind of discuss the reasoning for why I use those strategies. Alright, so trade number one was in the Bochum versus Köln game, and this was in the Bundesliga. So in this game, after about 6 or 7 minutes, I decided to lay Köln.
A lot of crosses in here today.
Gerrit Holtmann, scorer of goal of the season last season. Easy run against his old side, Mainz.
Now my reason for that was that Köln had played midweek and Bochum hadn't. Bochum had got a new manager. They'd lost, I think, the first 5 games of the season. So the market was kind of, if either team was going to be underrated, it was going to be Bochum were going to be underrated. They were playing at home with a new manager, and they started in the first 5 minutes. They came out and they started really strong. So for me, I put a lay bet on Köln at odds of 2.2. I was risking about £200 to win about £158 in this scenario. Okay, so I placed that trade and I've given you some of the reasoning behind it, but I also like to think about what's going to happen in the market in the next 20 to 25 minutes in that game if certain scenarios happen. So obviously, Köln can score and then we'll be looking at a loss. So whenever a goal goes against me with this type of trade where I'm laying a favourite that I think is an unjustified favourite, I think the odds should be bigger. If that goal does come for the favourite, I just take a loss straight away and move on to another trade. Obviously, Bochum can score, and then I believe that Köln's odds are probably going to go out to about around 4. And if Köln scored, they'd probably go to odds of about 1.3 to 1.4. And then the other thing that can happen is that there can be no goal at all, and that's also advantageous when you're laying a team, because obviously as time goes on, the draw has to come in, and as the draw comes in, the price on Köln will have to get bigger. And if Bochum are also kind of overperforming, they're playing better than their price indicates, then their price could come in or it could stay static, which forces Köln's price to move out even more. So for me, that's that's what I was thinking about, and I thought in the first 5-6 minutes that I'd seen of that game, that Köln didn't look like they had a much better chance of scoring than Bochum did. And then obviously we're also going to profit if there's no goal. So for me, it was a good lay trade.
Not be happy with that at all. You've got to put the ball into the danger area because things happen.
And that's what the great attack down the left side. The ball in the middle. Hoffmann has to be there when the ball comes in, but he's not. But there's a Köln player and he puts it in the wrong end. But good break quickly. Hoffmann picks up the ball, then lays it out, and there's no offside there. There's no one in the middle. All he can do is get that one across.
Alright, so from that clip you can see that Bochum did take the lead a few minutes later. They managed to go 1-0 up, and I put in a £50 back bet on Köln at 3.85. So this was just to reduce my overall liability on the trade. And even if Bochum hadn't scored that goal, my plan was just to put in small stakes, small like £10, £5 stakes, just as the odds would rise on Köln. As this reduces your risk, basically it brings your liability down, but it creates like a better value bet. You're basically creating a big value bet for yourself at lower stakes. But let's say by half time, if Köln's odds had gone out to 2.6 and I'd carried on taking out little bits of my stake, I might have been left with like £100 bet, but it would have been at lay odds of, let's say, like 1.8. So in that position, you're in a really good you've just created a really good value bet for yourself. So that was my final position on the game. Like I said, as the odds rose on Köln, because they couldn't find the equaliser, I started to just drip out my stakes, and I left a risk. My total risk on that game was minus £27 if Köln would have scored, and I stood to win 100 on the draw, or if Bochum won. So yeah, you could just take, some people do prefer just to trade out completely. I don't mind just leaving something that I think is value, and if it loses, it loses. But obviously when you're giving yourself such a large value bet, you're gonna win most of the time. So that was trade number one.
Speed.
You can see him also looking up. There's no one. Hoffmann obviously picked up the ball in the midfield. That's why he wasn't in the middle, but still.
On to trade number 2, and trade number 2 was a pretty simple one. I laid Alaves at odds of 1.05 to try and win £500. So they were playing at home against Huesca and they were 2-0 up, but when I looked at the statistics for the game and when I watched some of the game, I could see that it wasn't complete domination by Alaves. Huesca were creating opportunities and it looked like they could nick one back. And obviously when you're laying at odds so short, you're laying at odds of 1.05, there's potentially a much bigger upside than there is downside. And Huesca did get 1 goal back, and I could have traded out that position for, I think it was a £75 profit, but I decided to try and let it run and go for the big £500 win, which didn't come. But it was just a pretty simple trade where I was just looking at the statistics. I was looking at what was going on in the in-play markets, and that stood out to me. So I took like 5 minutes to have a look, and yeah, it seemed like, you know, like I say, there was a much bigger upside than downside, so I went for it. Trade number 3 was on the Roma versus Atalanta game. So in this game, I laid Roma for £150 at odds of 2.62, and it was similar reasoning to trade number 1, when I talked about Bochum and Köln, in that there was 2 teams that seemed fairly even from what I had seen. And when I looked at the statistics for like the first 20 minutes, and then I watched like 10 minutes of the game, I could see that Atalanta looked as they looked as dangerous as Roma did. So yeah, again, with the drift coming, with the favourite obviously has to rise in odds as the draw comes in, and also at 35 minutes as well, the kind of drift does have to ramp up a bit as you move closer to half time. I just thought it was a good trade again, and I just got fortunate as Atalanta scored about 2 minutes after I made the lay bet, and then I just decided to take the profit. From memory, I think something came up where I couldn't watch the rest of the game, so I ended up taking some of the profit, and just leaving the trade as that. So I made a profit of around £85 in that game. Alright, so on to trade number 4, and that was in the Betis versus Girona game. So in this game, I laid Betis when they went 1-0 down against Girona at odds of 2.92. So I was risking about £270 to win 140 in total. And the idea behind this trade was that Betis were quite a big favourite. They were a considerable favourite going into this game. But when a favourite does go 1-0 down, obviously initially the market will think they're going to get a goal back quite quickly. But if they don't, then you get that kind of rapid increase in odds that I've talked about when you do lay favourites, and obviously time decays and the draw comes in. So yeah, that was my plan again, was just to reduce my liability. If they weren't able to get a goal quickly, I thought those odds would rise quite rapidly, and I'd be able to leave myself with quite a big value position on Girona to win the game or draw the game. And Girona in the first 10 minutes had looked, fairly solid at the back as well, and I thought after they got their goal, I thought they'd be able to kind of sit behind the ball and try and force Betis to kind of overcommit, and they couldn't possibly get another goal. So as you can see, Betis did fire back pretty quickly, and they got an equaliser a couple of minutes after I placed the trade. So in this case, I just took a loss of £85 and then just moved on to another trade. Okay, so moving on to trade number 5, and that was in the Real Sociedad versus Espanyol game. So in this game, I laid over 3.5 goals at 1.18 to win £200. So in this game, there was 3 quick-fire goals inside the first 30 minutes. 3 goals were scored, but pre-match it wasn't a game that was expected to have a lot of goals. When I looked at the pre-match odds for over 3.5 goals, it was between 5 and 6. So yeah, it wasn't a game where there was a high expectation of a lot of goals. And as Sociedad were the favourite as well, and they were having a ton of possession in that game, you could see that they had like 75% possession. I thought that now that they'd taken the lead, that they might kind of try to slow the tempo down of the game and keep that possession. And then again, just as time would go on, the market would look to panic. So generally I think the market's going to overreact to the being 3 early goals than underreact. And I just thought once it got to like that 50-60 minute mark, if there was no goals, that would really start to ramp up that time decay, and the drift in the odds would really start to fly. So yeah, that was my reasoning behind that trade. So there were no more goals in the Sociedad versus Espanyol game, and ended up trading out at around 55 minutes. So overall, I placed that lay around the 35-minute mark, and then I got out at 55 minutes. So I had exposure to a goal of around 25 minutes there. So it was almost like an even money bet that there would be no goals in a 25-minute period.
Ball at his feet and then trying to shoot from there. That was a little bit too rushed, as you said.
Alright, so moving on to the last trade of this video, and that is trade number 6. In this trade I laid Hoffenheim at odds of 2.54, staking £150. So this trade is very, very similar to the Roma versus Atalanta game in the timing of it. Again, it's the late first half trade, so it's the 35 minute mark of the first half, and it's just an underperforming favourite. Again, I didn't feel like Hoffenheim were looking that much better than their opponents Freiburg. So I was looking at that late drift in the first half, and then if there was no goal again, obviously they continue to drift in the second half. So yeah, like all my trades, when I'm laying the favourite, I'm going to be out if there's a goal against me. I just like to cut my losses and then just move on to another trade. I don't like trying to trade when I have a red screen or a red number in front of me. I think maybe psychologically it just like makes you make mistakes or worse decisions. So I just like to leave it. And then if there was a goal for Freiburg, then I would probably remove some liability and then carry on removing liability as the game goes on and leave myself with a value position. And if there was just no goals in the game, then I would just continue to take out small back bets on Hoffenheim and lower that risk, that you have if Hoffenheim score a goal.
So 0-0 at the break. Well, let's reflect. Hoffenheim, there's foul play there by Purmel, who might have a slightly different role in the team now, as you mentioned, Torsten, following the attack.
Both teams are likely to score here.
So as you can see from those clips that I added, as the game went on, I just started to reduce my risk on Hoffenheim scoring a goal by reducing my liability, and that was just by backing, with small stakes like £5-10, just as Hoffenheim's odds rose. I would just back them, and I ended up with a position on the 70-minute mark where I would lose around £70 if Hoffenheim did win the game, but if Hoffenheim couldn't win the game, I was winning just over £70. So you could see the odds at that time as well on Hoffenheim to win the game were odds of 4, whereas the kind of lay odds that I'm getting at that time were odds of even money. So that's what I mean by creating kind of value positions as the game moves on. You can rely on a favourite's odds to drift. It has to drift, especially as you get to the second half. So yeah, overall it was a good trading session. Alright, so that brings me to the end of this video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you did enjoy it and perhaps learn something from it, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel, as that enables me to keep making this type of content related to making money from sports betting and trading. And if there's anything you want me to expand on, or you have any comments on the trading, maybe you didn't understand it, maybe you disagree with the trading methods, then yeah, please comment. And this might be something that I try and do every couple of months if we continue to trade. I have the time to keep trading in play. We'll see how it continues. It could be interesting. So thank you for watching. See ya.